sense. I need to do this right now. So we're talking a little bit about resiliency. And to me, that's a little bit of the epicenter of it. I want to keep this like really simple because it really can be really simple, as hard as it seems. It's as if the formula is, can I get quiet enough to listen to that part of myself that knows exactly what I need, that knows that in this moment, if I really pause and look around, I'm safe. And that's unfortunately that voice inside each and every one of us that lives in each and every one of us gets covered up because our minds get so noisy. It gets noisy it gets clogged up by the overstimulation of the media. It gets clogged up by our thoughts and our worries. It gets clogged up by our worry about our own anxiety. And we can't hear it. And then we try to hear it. We try to tell ourselves we're okay, maybe at times. Maybe at times we try and look up all the self-help stuff I can find and just tell myself, fit in things and that can try and force the idea that I'm okay. And sometimes that just actually creates more resistance. The striving to be okay creates more resistance and pressure. And sometimes what we need is to relax and listen. And so how do we do that? And that's a really important practice. And there's a lot of things to do. Like, so if the formula is these 3 R's that I like to talk about: recognize, release, refocus. You've heard maybe you've heard me say those before. And it's worth like repeating throughout our entire life, because wherever our focus goes, it tends to invite a certain energy. If we focus on worrying, we create anxiety. If we just naturally focus on gratitude, as an example, and it's authentic, we tend to lighten up. The energy tends to lighten up. If we stay present as one person we have an area of the collective called the inner core, and this is a group that meets really regularly, and one of the participants once said that she said, sometimes I just focus on my daughter's eyelashes and the particulars of her face and her eyelashes, and a shift is created in me. Now we say, what's resiliency? Resiliency is being able to bounce back in some ways in the face of difficulty. It's having the ability to not go down so deep. And if we do, we maybe have this awareness that all things come and go, all things shift, all things change. And even in this difficult moment, I know this won't last forever, and I can come out of this. So the question is, during this time, what am I really needing? So to be able to ask that question, though, what am I needing? Self-compassion, as an example, for those of you who are familiar with that practice, or maybe even gone through programs involved in it, the essential question there is, what am I needing? But in order to ask that question and be able to listen to the answer, we have to have created space to be able to drop that question in. Sometimes it's like we're trying to fish for that question, but the lake is iced over. We need like a hole and space, that space between stimulus and response, to be able to, we need to widen that space in order to listen. Just listen. And if that space is wide enough, we can hear a voice inside, or it's kind of like a sensing. Sometimes it's not even a voice. It's not necessarily like someone's voice necessarily. Sometimes it's a sensing that, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I'm needing, or I'm okay, or something like that. And we can train ourselves and get the skill in order to do that. Resiliency is also So that's the recognize. The release is a way of widening that space. So the release is this worry, this challenge is in me. It's all in the way we're relating to it. It's real. COVID is real. We've been living with it for 10 months and we're going to be living with it for a while. And even though this seems like maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel in some way, it's not anytime in the next day or two. And so here we are and we're living with it. And so we need to release. And the releasing widens that space between stimulus and response. We release through our bodies. There's so many different ways to release and widen that space. It's not just meditation. Meditation is one way, if that's what we feel like we're needing, to be quiet, to do a guided meditation, our favorite one, whatever it is, our go-to, practice. Sometimes it's just like shaking our body. Sometimes it's putting a song on that invites a different energy. Sometimes it's looking at the particulars of someone's face in a picture that we have. Sometimes getting out in nature and touching a tree. What helps me release this energy? For some people, they literally go out and they put their hand on a tree and just imagine this energy just flowing in the tree and the tree absorbs it because nature can be so healing. That's a release. Lots of different ways to release, to widen that space so that then we can ask the question, what is it I'm really needing right now? So I can elongate my opportunity for resiliency. So recognize, release, refocus. Because remember, refocus is wherever we focus, it tends to invite a certain energy, but we can't just where some people go that is an issue is we tend to just try and go straight to gratitude, or we go straight to trying to self-talk. I'm okay, or look what's good around me, or that kind of thing. And it's not that impactful, maybe a little bit, but because the space wasn't widened enough. There's no, when we take a plant and we're planting it in our garden, we have to dig a deep hole so that we can put it down and the roots can grow. If we just like plant it there, if we just put it on top of the bed of dirt, it's not going to really root that well. We need to put a hole in there. We got to create some space for it. So we create some space. That's the release. Recognize creates a little bit. Release widens that space. Now we can drop the question, and that's the seed for it to take root. What do I need right now? It's a very simple practice. And if we widen that space enough and we drop that question in, that's when that part of us that knows will tell us what we need. Don't even need to force it. It's just about, if we get to a point where we recognize we're releasing and we ask ourselves the question, but I can't hear anything, I can't sense anything, we need to go back and recognize and release again. Don't need to force it. We don't need to force what I think I should need right now. If you can't hear it, we go back to recognize and release again. We go back until the space is wide enough where we just hear that voice inside that lives in every single one of us, I promise. And it's there. It just knows. We just on a constant trance of forgetting because we're so busy inside of us within our own selves, from our own history that's made it busy, with our overstimulation. And we fill the spaces of our lives, which on its own is its own thing. But what we're doing is we're practicing busyness. And so it just makes it noisier inside of us and we can't hear that voice. That's all. That's why practicing stillness is actually kind of important, not just for the stillness itself, but so that we can have that available to us to widen that space and be able to hear. So that's why we practice this mindfulness stuff, really, is because it's like it's a strength inside of us that we want to strengthen so we can hear, we can like in some ways balance out all the noise a little bit and hear inside of ourselves what we're really needing from the part of us that knows. And so that's one thing around resiliency. And I just want to add one other thing, and then we can discuss it too. There's a reality that we sometimes forget, and everyone here kind of knows it. The reality of impermanence, the reality that all things come and go. All things come and go. I haven't really met anyone that's been able to come up with anything that's not true for. I think our sun is halfway through its life cycle right now, from what I understand. And so in like 5 billion years or something like that, the sun will go. Everything comes and goes. That means this planet too. So, um, so when we're on a journey of our own health and well-being, of our own resiliency, we have to understand that alongside this journey, we're going to have tough moments, tough times, and we're going to have like awesome times. And the trick here is to remember that, so that we say, okay, so during these tough times, I have to apply something different. I'm going to need something different to create a certain kind of grace. And when I do that, when I layer in this self-compassion or getting clear on what I'm needing and being able to apply it like a solve to a wound, that I create a certain strength from that, because I teach myself that no matter what comes my way, I can be okay. And I create a memory of that, so that during the next tough moment, it's retrievable. And during the good moments, I also recognize those as impermanent. And for some people, it's like, oh, that's a bummer. I just have this story that we lived in Northern California, my wife and I, and in the South Bay, the grass gets brown in the winter, and in many parts of the world, it gets brown in the winter, right? In California, it doesn't. I mean, in Southern California, it doesn't happen as much. It's a little different. But and she said like, oh, it was during the no, it was during the spring, and she said, look at the grass, look at the hills, are so beautiful and green. And I said, they really are, and at some point, in not too distant future, they're going to be brown. She said, why do you have to be so negative? Why are you so negative about it? I said, no, I'm just saying that it's going to change. So I'm appreciating the green here while it's here, because it's going to change. All things come and go. And so do our difficult moments. And so do the good moments. And so we can learn to be grateful for the good moments. And those moments, maybe what we're needing is like to celebrate. And in the tougher moments, we're needing something different. And everything comes and goes. Just like this COVID, as much as there's many people I know who say like, this is never going to go away. Or it's think life, and I can't, and that's just not in the realm of possibility, because in the way that it is right now, because all things come and go. Just a basic natural law. And so if we can have that perspective, we can hold that in the tough moments, then we can realize there may be less stinging, and we can realize during this time, what am I needing right now? And this time's been long. The social isolation of it for a lot of people has been long. And so we come back to it like it seems like it's kind of re-traumatizing almost, because it seems like, oh yeah, well, I thought it was temporary, but look how long it's been 10 months now. And so when's it going to end? And when am I going to be able to hug people again and, see my friends and do this kind of thing? And it's going to happen. And so the question is like, now for this period of time, how much ever longer it is, like, how do I get in touch with that part of myself that can be aware of what I'm needing while holding the perspective of the temporariness of this still. And so playing with those different things when we're talking about resiliency, that formula of those 3 R's, making sure you can hear that voice if you can't, going back to those first 2, practicing and repeating that, and then also the perspective of the change journey, of the journey of life, of how it goes like this. And the more we can make use out of those tougher moments, the more we can recognize them, release, refocus, the more we can celebrate the good moments, the more balance and sense of inner peace we can create within ourselves, because we don't get as hooked. But as I say this, by the way, this is something I have to actively practice, because it's an imperfect type of thing, and try not to project any kind of perfection on me or anybody, really. The Dalai Lama, as an example, has a tough time meditating sometimes. That's something he talks about. It's not easy for him. He sometimes goes a while without doing it. It's hard for him. And so it's not as if anybody has it, and there's no perfection to any of it. So so we play with it. That's the word I use. I like to use that word better than practicing. It's something to play with.